Hey guys, hope you're having an awesome day. In this video, we will be going over how to make your perfect Genshin Impact team. I would like to start off with a disclaimer that, for the most part, you could run almost any team composition you like, so long as you enjoy your team's playstyle. Playing the game the way you enjoy is the most important thing because you'll be fighting in-game monsters and bosses, not other players. But in any case, if you're looking to optimize your team's setup for mid-game, late-game, boss battles, and co-op gameplay, this is the video for you. There are 3 main topics we will cover today, each of which you should think about when building your perfect team. We have weapon types, element types, status ailments, and elemental reactions, and team chemistry. Let's first talk about weapon types. There are currently 5 weapon types in the game, with more likely to be added in the future. Each character in the game has 1 weapon type. There are 3 melee weapons: swords, which are one-handed, claymores, which are two-handed, and polearms. We also have 2 ranged weapons, the first being a catalyst, which is basically a magic book or magic orb, and bows. When you're building a team, try to have a mix of both melee and ranged characters. Each type of weapon has a different attack speed and natural damage output. For example, for melee weapons, polearms attack the fastest, while claymores attack the slowest, but each claymore attack deals more damage than a polearm attack. Swords fall somewhere in the middle, with a good amount of range and good amount of speed. Bows also fall around that same speed, but can attack from a very far range. Catalysts have a shorter range than bows do and attack slightly slower, but when it attacks, it applies elemental damage as opposed to neutral damage. The key takeaway here is that there is no best weapon type. Rather, you should get a feel for all the different weapons and create a team that fits your playstyle best. This section of team building is the least restrictive, so long as you ensure your team is not entirely melee or entirely ranged. Next, let's talk about element types. There are 7 total elements in this game, which are Anemo for wind, Geo for earth, Pyro for fire, Hydro for water, Electro for lightning, Cryo for frost, and Dendro for nature. Now, as of this video, Dendro is the one element that has not been released, so we will not be discussing it in this video. Just like weapon type, each character has 1 element type, with the only exception being the main character, who has been rumored to eventually control all 7 elements. Now let's delve into status ailments. If you attack an enemy with a basic attack, you deal neutral damage, the exception here being if you attack with a catalyst. If you attack an enemy with an elemental attack, you deal elemental damage based on that character's natural element, and inflict the enemy with that element's corresponding status ailment. So for example, if you use Kai's freeze ability, as seen here, you deal cryo damage, and inflict the opponent with a cryo status ailment. If you use Amber's fire attack, you deal pyro damage, and inflict the opponent with a pyro status ailment. This goes for all elements, except for Anemo, which we will talk more about in just a minute. We will not go into detail on what each status ailment does, as that should be a topic for a dedicated video, but keep these status ailments in mind because things are about to get real spicy. There is so much more to combat in Genshin Impact than just smacking each other with weapons. The key to winning battles and beating tough bosses requires the mastery of elemental reactions. Now, what are elemental reactions? Elemental reactions occur when you hit an enemy with a different element after they have been inflicted with a status ailment. This generally deals extra damage, and part of the fun of Genshin is discovering and timing each elemental reaction. A few examples are using an Electro attack on an enemy that is inflicted with Hydro, or using an Anemo attack on an enemy that is inflicted with Pyro. A strong team is one that can regularly inflict elemental reactions to increase the team's overall damage output and destroy your enemies with ease. Last, we will be discussing team chemistry. This is where we take all that we've learned from the first 2 sections and apply them to our team chemistry. The first general rule is to not have more than 2 characters of the same element. Your team will receive a bonus effect called Elemental Resonance when it meets one of the following requirements: either 4 unique elements, or 2 of a kind of at least 1. The Elemental Resonance bonus can always be referred to by clicking on Party Setup, then Elemental Resonance on the top right. It will list what current bonus you have, so for example, having 4 unique elements provides a 15% elemental resistance boost, which means you take 15% less damage from all enemy elemental attacks. If you happen to have a 2 of a kind of one element, you will receive that corresponding element's resonance bonus. So for 2 power units, for example, your entire team will receive a 25% attack buff, and you'll be affected by Cryo, the freeze status, for 40% less time. Currently, the best 2 of a kind element bonuses are Anemo, Pyro, Electro, and Hydro. Doubling up on 2 Hydro characters or 2 Geo characters is not the end of the world, but their respective element resonance bonuses are currently lackluster. Do note that if you have 2 pairs of 2 separate elements, you actually can receive both elements' respective elemental resonances. The next rule of team chemistry involves roles. A team of a 2 of a kind elemental resonance should look like this. You have your main DPS, your secondary DPS, your elemental enabler, and your support/pivot. A team of 4 distinct elements should look something like this. Your main DPS, 2 times elemental enablers, and a support/pivot. Your main DPS is the character that you want to use as your primary damage dealer, the one that you want to keep on the field for as long as possible. This is also the character that you will be maxing out equipment and levels for, because they will carry your team over the edge. Good examples of this include Diluc, Razor, Mona, Changyun, and Ningguang. Your secondary DPS is the character that will assist your main DPS by supplying burst damage or a damage aura. As an example, for fire compositions, Xiangling is stellar because she can drop her E ability, then use her Q, and then you can swap back to your main character while Xiangling's abilities persist. Another good example would be Kaya. If Kaya uses his ultimate, his Q, the ice particles around him will persist when you switch over to another character. So good examples of secondary DPS include Fischl, Kaya, Xingqiu, and Xiangling. Your elemental enabler is the character that takes advantage of elemental reactions to allow your secondary and main DPS characters to do as much damage as they can. As an example, for a team with 2 cryo units, you can use Xingqiu, a Hydro sword user, to inflict your enemies with Hydro. Then you can swap in with Kaya and Changyun, which are both cryo characters, to freeze your enemies with ice attacks repeatedly. A few key things to note about enablers. Enablers are interchangeable with secondary DPS depending on which element you are using 2 of. So for example, we used Xiangling as a secondary DPS example in a double Pyro comp. But if you were to run a double Electro comp, Xiangling can be used as the enabler for that composition. Your support or pivot is a character that supports your team through healing abilities, defensive abilities, or damage amplification. This includes characters like Barbara, Noelle, Jean, Chi-Chi, and most Anemo characters. The reason why this list includes most Anemo characters is because the Anemo elemental reaction is very unique. On its own, Anemo does not inflict a status ailment. However, if there are any other elements in the vicinity of an Anemo element ability, it creates a swirl reaction that takes on the other element and spreads it over a wider area. And there you have it. Those are 3 main topics you should keep in mind when you're trying to create your team. Now again, would like to reiterate that although these are a couple of rules, they are not set in stone, and it is dependent on how you would like to enjoy the game most. I'm hoping that this video is here to shed some light on how you can optimize your team and use each character to the best of their abilities. If you enjoy this type of content, please do leave a like and subscribe. I would love to make more videos like this. Feedback is always welcome, so please feel free to drop it in the comment section below. Hope you guys have an amazing journey in Genshin Impact, and see you around. Peace.